President, honourable members, Commissioner, the destruction of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant on June 6th would not have happened if Russia had not started its illegal war of aggression against Ukraine. We, as the European Union, have condemned this attack. It represents another violation of international law, notably international humanitarian law. We expressed our full sympathy and solidarity with the Ukrainian people, especially those in the affected areas, for their losses and suffering. The downstream flooding has endangered the lives of thousands of innocent people and is affecting water and energy supplies. It has also extremely negative consequences for the environment and agriculture in vast areas of Ukraine. This ecological and environmental catastrophe will take years to repair, and those responsible need to be held to account for this and as well for other war crimes in connection with the Russian aggression. Dealing with the consequences of this despicable act and relieving the damage caused will be a part of our effort towards recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. We will continue our response to the Russian war, as we have done until now, along three strands. Through our unwavering support to Ukraine, and in this regard I would like to thank the European Parliament for its resolute support, the international isolation and sanctions against Russia, and diplomatic outreach for the world to mitigate the effect of the Russian war and fight back Russian disinformation, which regrettably still has an impact traction. To date, the EU and its member states' support to Ukraine amounts to at least 70 billion euros, including macro-financial assistance, military support and humanitarian aid. We will continue to strengthen this support for as long as it takes. It is crucial to help Ukraine prevail, win the war and win the peace. And our support is clear. First, our security commitment to Ukraine. It includes European Peace Facility, training of Ukrainian soldiers, EUMAM, more air defense support and ramping up the EU defense industry. The initial objectives of 15,000 soldiers trained is already reached, and we are well on track to train the new objectives of 30,000 soldiers. Our initiative to ammunition is a clear example on how the EU thinks and acts both short and long term. We are delivering on our promise of 1 million rounds of ammunition within 12 months, while also looking into different options to ensure that our military support is sustainable in the long term. We have allocated 500 million euros to ramp up European defense industries through ASAP, the Act of Support of Ammunition Production. Second, nearly a year ago, the EU took a truly historic decision. Ukraine was granted candidate country status. The strategic objective of both the EU and Ukraine is clear: EU membership. The process must be merit-based and necessary reforms implemented. Ukraine's European path represents the EU's ultimate solidarity and support to Ukraine. Third, we continue working to undermine Russia's war machine also through sanctions. With 10 packages adopted and work ongoing towards adopting of an 11th package. And I can assure you that the Swedish presidency is working hard towards the adoption of this package. We have sanctioned 1,473 individuals and 207 entities, and have taken sectoral measures, including export controls, and we have phased out Russian energy and taken action to stop access to the international financial system and assets abroad. Fourth, accountability. We continue working together with Ukraine to ensure full accountability for war crimes and other serious crimes committed against Ukraine, including the crime of aggression. In addition to our support to the ICC and Ukraine's Office of the Prosecutor General, we work on a joint EU position on the dedicated tribunal for the crime of aggression. Fifth, peace support. Supporting President Zelensky's peace formula and the organization of Peace Formula Summit with wide international participation. No one is longing for peace more than Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. We support President Zelensky's initiative for a just peace based on respect for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity, as protected by the UN Charter. We, as the EU, have a clear responsibility to ensure that Ukraine will become a successful EU member state. This responsibility calls for a continuous mobilization. Today, while Russia continues waging war and committing war crimes, tomorrow, for the reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine, and throughout, to support Ukraine in implementing the reforms needed into the view to the EU accession. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the debate.
Paldies, ministrs kundze. Vārds komisijai, priekšsēdētājs izpildu vietniekam Valdim Dombrovskim. Lūdzu.
Priekšsēdētāja kungs, godātie deputāti. I'm here to address you today on the latest developments in Ukraine, the update on EU support after the destruction of Nova Kakhovka Dam, and our approach for Ukraine's reconstruction conference next week in London. We have expressed our support to Ukrainian people whose lives are at risk as a result of this senseless attack, which represents a new dimension of Russian atrocities. One of the most critical aspects that we must continue to follow is the potential impact on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The situation is currently stable, as the water levels from cooling pond within the reservoir also remain stable. We're also appalled by very alarming reports that Russian forces are shelling Ukrainian rescuers trying to reach flooded areas in the Kherson region. Since the early hours of 6th of June, the Emergency Response Coordination Center of the European Commission has been closely monitoring the situation and remains in constant contact with the Ukrainian emergency services. A first coordinated meeting with Ukraine and the civil protection authorities of all EU member states took place on 6th of June and resulted in a formal request for assistance from Ukrainian State Emergency Service. To date, 14 member states and Union Civil Protection Mechanism participating states have offered assistance to Ukraine. This includes 76 boats, over 300 water pumps, and over 160,000 shelter items. The Commission's immediate response to the dam breach and the rapid mobilization of assistance is a result of foresight works that began months before. Ever since Russian forces occupied the dam, the Emergency Response Coordination Center has developed a detailed impact analysis and modeling of various degrees of a dam break. This analysis has been constantly updated and shared with Ukrainian emergency services for contingency planning and operational preparedness. This work allowed valuable time to be gained and situational awareness for emergency response after the last week's events. Similar work is needed for other disaster risks. Honourable members, I will now turn to the next point at this debate, the reconstruction of Ukraine. The EU is committed to a long-term support for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. The Commission is looking at EU support for Ukraine in the medium term, beyond 2023, as part of our midterm review of 2024-2027 multi-annual financial framework, which is ongoing. It is clear that investment in Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction cannot wait until the war ends. In many regions, it can start now. Supporting the recovery implies sustaining economic activity, people with critical needs, and basic infrastructure, all vital for much-needed stability and growth. Ukraine will need additional support this year, in particular for its rapid recovery needs. The Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment has estimated its immediate rapid recovery needs for 2023 at $14 billion. For priority areas like civil and social infrastructure, energy infrastructure, housing, private sector development, and humanitarian demining. In order to have a clear overview of needs and how to better respond to them, a well-structured and coordinated approach of reconstruction is needed, both when it comes to fast recovery and longer-term measures. We need a plan that is fully owned by Ukraine and ensures a broad government approach, setting out a clear vision and sequenced reconstruction priorities and supporting the EU accession track. It will facilitate securing predictable financial support beyond 2023 from a broader donor base. This will require a broad government approach, including at central and local levels. The government should use the full potential of the multi-agency donor coordination platform in which Ukraine takes part as a central coordination mechanism for Ukraine. This includes the decisive role that it can play in mobilizing global efforts beyond 2023 and matching needs with resources. It is important to stress that Ukraine's reconstruction should also be financed by Russian assets. The EU is committed to ensuring that Russia is held fully accountable for its unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression against Ukraine. We have to ensure strong coordination with our European financial institutions, both the European Investment Bank and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, to make sure that they play an important role in Ukraine's reconstruction. This includes fast recovery as well as post-war reconstruction efforts. Both banks have lived up to the role, stepping up their support for Ukraine from the very first days of Russia's war. The EIB has also set up the EU for Ukraine initiative to finance its recovery and reconstruction. The Commission and the EIB are finalizing agreement today to enable the EIB to provide 100 million euros of new loans to Ukraine with support of the EU guarantee. In May, the EBRD governors agreed to launch the process of capital increase to provide more firepower for the continuous critical role that bank plays in Ukraine and its forthcoming reconstruction. The successful third meeting of the Steering Committee of Multi-Agency Donor Coordination Platform on 26 of May confirms the platform's vital role as a catalyst for mobilizing international commitments to respond to Ukraine's priority needs in 2023 and beyond, and to facilitate ever closer coordination to help meet needs on the ground. The next Steering Committee meeting will take place in person in the margins of the Ukraine Recovery Conference 2023. The European Commission welcomes the focus of the London Recovery Conference on the private sector. It seems that various initiatives are being developed for private sector support. This is good, but we need to ensure complementarities and avoid duplication. The reforms related to improving the business environment are crucial for Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. The perspective of the EU accession provides fundamental value in this regard. The public sector will play an important role in providing guarantees and other de-risking instruments, particularly insurance, to enable private sector participation and investment in Ukraine. This will be particularly important to restore trade and commerce flows. The European Commission is working to launch a pilot facility to counter-guarantee export credit agencies so that they can continue to cover for exports on the EU companies to Ukraine. The lack of war insurance in most EU member states is seen as one of the barriers to engage private business in Ukraine's reconstruction. We are in discussion with several partners, including the UK and the EBRD, about a potential scheme to incentivize the insurance industry to launch war insurance policies for Ukraine. The Commission is also working with the EIB on a 40 million euros guarantee facility for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Honourable members, it is important to keep Ukraine high on the leaders' agenda to demonstrate the EU's unwavering support. Pending on the oral update on the implementing the 7 steps of the Commission opinion, we will update as Ukraine continues its war efforts. Progress on reforms during wartime has been impressive, but some work remains to be done. The European Commission and our delegation in Kyiv are closely cooperating with Ukrainian interlocutors on a few outstanding issues. It is important that the EU sends a message to Ukraine and our international partners that the EU is ready to ensure sustainable and predictable financial support beyond 2023. The EU will play a special role for Ukraine's reconstruction, and reconstruction efforts need to go hand in hand with reforms to build a modern and resilient country that is resolutely turned towards the EU. The Commission is working on proposals in this area that will likely accompany the midterm review of the multi-annual financial framework. The Commission cannot comment on third states' relationships with NATO, as the EU has no say on that. But that said, it's clear that credible arrangements are needed to guarantee Ukraine's future security and to break Russia's cycle of aggression. Thank you.